Hello class, today we're going to learn how to solve ratio word problems using a method called cross multiplication. There are 8 markers for every 3 whiteboards in your school. If there are 45 whiteboards, then how many markers would there be? So the first thing we write down are the two things we're comparing, and we're comparing markers to whiteboards, and then we fill in the ratio underneath. So there are 8 markers for every 3 whiteboards. Then the question is telling you that there are 45 whiteboards. So where would you put 45? Under whiteboards. And they're asking how many markers would there be? So that's your unknown. So that's where we put either a question mark or an X. So to solve this problem, we're going to use equivalent ratios. And how do you get from 3 to 45? You multiply 3 by 15 to get to 45. And whatever you do to one side, you need to do the other to make sure that they're equivalent. And 8 times 15 is 120. So therefore, there are 120 markers. So that's one way to solve ratio word problems, but now we're going to look at something called cross multiplication, which is a different method, and it'll help you when the word problems get more difficult. The first few steps are exactly the same. You write down the two things you're comparing, you write down the ratio, and then you fill it in. But then what you are going to do is you're going to draw an X. So you're going to draw lines going across from each number. So the 8 connects with the 45 and the 3 connects with X, and whatever is on either side of the line you're going to multiply. So I'm going to multiply the 3 and the X to get 3X, and then I'm going to make an equal sign, and then I'm going to multiply what's on the other side of the other line, which is 8 and 45. So I'm going to make an algebraic equation, 8 times 45. So then we get 3x equals 360, and we divide each side by 3, and we get our final as x equals 120. So we get the same answer, 120 markers, but it was a different way of doing it using cross multiplication. The ratio of girls to boys in the school spelling bee contest is 8 to 4. If there are 9 boys participating, how many girls are there? Again, the first thing we do is we write down the two things we are comparing. So we're comparing girls to boys. And order matters in a ratio. So because girls comes first in your question and 8 came first in your ratio, then there are 8 girls to 4 boys is the ratio. Then the question tells us that there are 9 boys participating. So 9 would go under boys. And how many girls is what they're asking, so that's our unknown, so that becomes X. Now the problem here becomes a little bit obvious, because if we were to use our first method, you can't multiply 4 by anything to get 9, or by any whole number at least. So this is where cross multiplication comes in handy. So I'm going to make an X, and I'm going to multiply 4 times X on each side of that line. Then I'm going to write my equal sign and multiply 8 by 9 on the other side of the equal sign. So 8 times 9 is 72. I divide each side by 4 to get the x alone, and I get my final answer as x equals 18. Now x represented how many girls there were, so I write my therefore sentence, therefore there are 18 girls. You can also use cross multiplication to solve for equivalent fractions. So you would make your x, multiply the n times the 5, put your equal sign, and then multiply the 2 times the 107. 5n equals 214. Divide each side by 5, and you're going to get a decimal. N equals 42.8 as your final answer.